First of all, I would like to greet and welcome all of you here this morning. Having said that, I would like also to remind you that you're having the wish to enter the gate of Dharma to begin with, and you're actually practicing Dharma and meditating. All of this is wondrous, and therefore I thank all of you for this and congratulate all of you. Customarily, we begin any session of teaching by purifying our motivation. Now, the fact that you are here is evidence of your faith in Dharma and your wish to practice. That means that you already have a pure motivation. Nevertheless, it's appropriate at the beginning of the session to consciously generate bodhicitta as we are instructed. Bodhicitta is that motivation which has two aspects. One aspect is that it is focused impartially on all beings without exception. The other aspect is that the good that it wishes for those beings is their perfect awakening or perfect Buddhahood. So please generate that bodhicitta which has these two concerns. Our subject is the four dharmas of Gampopa. And in spite of the extreme brevity of this teaching, it is after all merely 4 sentences, it is regarded as uncommonly profound instruction. It includes uncommon and superior instructions. Principally, what it includes is the 2 streams or traditions that Lord Gampopa united. In his teaching, he combined the teachings of the gradual path which come from Lord Atisha and the Mahamudra teachings which come from Lords Marpa and Milarepa. Therefore, Gampopa's tradition is often referred to as the combined streams or combined rivers of the Kadampa and Mahamudra traditions. Now, how are these 2 traditions embodied or found within the 4 dharmas? The first 2 of the 4, the mind going to the Dharma and Dharma becoming a path, are principally concerned with what is taught in Atisha's teachings of the stages of the path. The second 2, the path clarifying or removing bewilderment and bewilderment arising as wisdom, are principally concerned with the instructions of Mahamudra from Lords Marpa and Milarepa. In any case, these 4 dharmas summarize and include the entire path from the beginning to the end. In looking at these, we will start now with the first 2, the mind going to the Dharma and Dharma becoming a path, in connection with the teachings of Lord Atisha. Within the collected assembly teachings of Lord Gampopa, an occasion is recorded in which one of his disciples asked him if it were actually the case that an ordinary person could achieve in one life and one body the state of great unity, the state of Vajradhara. The context of the question was that the questioner had heard some teachers of the Kadampa tradition say that the statement that one can achieve the state of Vajradhara in one lifetime is a statement with a hidden intention, not to be taken literally, that it merely referred to the achievement of a common attainment, such as seeing the face of the deity or the accomplishment of medicinal attainment and so on. But that an ordinary person could not, according to those teachers, achieve the state of Vajradhara in one life and one body. That this statement that one could should not be taken literally, should not be regarded as definitive. In his response, Lord Gampopa mentioned that he had asked Jitsen Milarepa this same question, and he regarded Milarepa's answer as definitive and as to be taken as stated. And Milarepa's answer was that one can definitely achieve the state of great unity, the state of Vajradhara, in one life and one body, if certain conditions are present. These conditions include that the guru be perfectly authentic and that the disciple be fully receptive. If the guru's teachings are complete and the disciple's practice or implementation of them is wholehearted and complete, if the disciple has the necessary discernment, exertion, faith, devotion, and so on, then certainly this state can be achieved in one lifetime. Now, this is an extraordinary statement and is a very important instruction for us. It may sound at first hearing like an ordinary statement, but it actually is extremely important because it includes the point that we can achieve the state of great unity, the state of Vajradhara, in this life, and that to do so, we need both an authentic guru and receptivity as a disciple. The point is that those instructions that will enable us, under these conditions, to achieve this state so quickly still exist. And therefore, those who possess sufficient faith and devotion and discernment and diligence can achieve this state in this very lifetime. Now, some of us have less faith and devotion and so forth, which means we may not achieve that state in this lifetime. But even if we do not achieve the final result, the state of Vajradhara, in this lifetime, our having entered the gate of Dharma and practiced to whatever extent we have makes us most fortunate. After all, even someone who generates even the slightest faith in Dharma has planted the seed of their certain future liberation. The first of the four Dharmas is, grant your blessing that my mind go to the Dharma. Now, what this refers to fundamentally is the arising in your mind of faith and devotion in and for Dharma, so that you actually enter into the gate of Dharma and the practice of Dharma. Last night, I remarked that the fact that you are here is evidence that your minds have already gone to the Dharma, as in order to come here, you've engaged in some difficulty, undergone some expense, and it's also evidence that you practice Dharma as well. But according to the traditional instructions, at this point it's necessary to explain the significance of the mind going to the Dharma anyway. Principally speaking, this first of the four Dharmas, the mind going to the Dharma, refers to the common four thoughts that turn the mind. And these are, as they are explained, for example, in Lord Gampopa's own Jewel Ornament of Liberation. They are contemplation of the difficulty of acquisition of the freedom and resources of this precious human existence, contemplation of impermanence, contemplation of the results of actions, and contemplation of the defects of samsara. The first of these, the difficulty of acquisition or the significance of these freedoms and resources, is as follows. We are all extremely fortunate, whether we regard it principally as a result of our own merit accumulated in previous lives, or principally as a result of the blessing of the 1,002 Buddhas of this fortunate aeon. We have now been born in such circumstances that we are able to study and practice Dharma. This particular aeon is called the Bhadrakalpa, or fortunate aeon, and that refers to this entire aeon from the beginning of this world system up to the time of its final destruction. It is called fortunate because during this aeon there will arise 1,002 Buddhas, each of whom will turn the wheel of Dharma. So, whether we regard it as a result of our merit accumulated in previous lives or the blessing of these Buddhas, we have been born in such circumstances that in this aeon we have access to the blessing and compassion and teaching of those Buddhas. In particular, at this time, we have been born within the teaching period of the fourth of these 1,002 Buddhas, Buddha Shakyamuni. Buddha Shakyamuni turned the wheel of Dharma, and his Dharma teachings still exist in our world unimpaired. So therefore, this fact that the Buddha's compassion and our faith and devotion have come together makes us very fortunate. First of all, we have been born as human beings. We have been born in a time and place where Dharma exists, and we've actually entered into the gate of Dharma. Therefore, we possess great good fortune. Our teacher, the Samyak Sambuddha, was the fourth of the 1,002 Buddhas of this aeon. He appeared in this world and turned the wheel of Dharma He taught in India, and his teaching gradually spread outward from India to other lands. Now, the access we have to Dharma in general, and especially to the instructions of Mahamudra as we know them, are results of the appearance in Tibet of Lord Marpa the translator and Lord Atisha. Because before their appearance in that country, people there had no access to these teachings, the teachings of the gradual path and the teachings of Mahamudra. Subsequent to their appearance, these teachings, and as they were combined by Lord Gampopa, began to spread. They spread through the activity initially of Lords Marpa, Milarepa, and Gampopa, and then through the activity of His Holiness the Jawan Karmapa, starting with the first Karmapa and up to the present. During the time of the 16 Karmapas in Tibet, the teachings of the Kadamba and Mahamudra streams combined spread widely, and innumerable siddhas appeared through their activity. But as far as North America is concerned, until the lifetime of the 16th Karmapa, there was no access in this country or in this land to these teachings. The reason for this is that the Buddha's aspiration for the presence of these teachings in this land was not yet fulfilled. But during the lifetime of His Holiness the 16th Jawan Karmapa, these teachings began to come here. Initially, his heart sons, the Lord of Refuge Trungpa Rinpoche and the Lord of Refuge Kalu Rinpoche, appeared in these lands. And then, there having led the way, His Holiness came himself, taught, founded this monastery, and so forth. Now, no doubt some of you actually met His Holiness the 16th Karmapa, and I suspect that there are also many people here who did not. Some of you, in addition, may have met His Holiness the 17th Jawan Karmapa, and others of you may have not. But whether you actually have met His Holiness or not, you have encountered and become involved with the path that he has shown. He has shown and demonstrated this path by founding this monastery and by teaching Dharma. In short, you have been born as a human being, you have met the teachings of Dharma, and in particular, you've been born in a time and place where Buddha Dharma is easily available to you through the activity of His Holiness the 16th Karmapa and others. This is very rare. It should be obvious from what I have said that Buddha Dharma is not always available everywhere. Therefore, it is rare, it is difficult to find. And at this time, we have acquired all of these resources, all of these opportunities, which are so difficult to acquire. Having acquired them, and with the understanding of their rarity, it's important to actually make use of them and practice Dharma. For example, those who were born in North America 100 years ago were certainly human beings, but they had no opportunity to meet the Buddha's teachings. Those born now have this opportunity. And in not only having the opportunity to encounter the Buddha's teachings, but in addition to that, possessing sufficient faith in these teachings to actually enter into the gate of Dharma, which opportunity and resources you all possess is extremely rare and extremely precious. You are greatly fortunate, and it is important to recognize your good fortune. Through that recognition, your exertion will be inspired, and the more exertion you engage in practice, the more you cultivate diligence, the more you cultivate the faculties of discernment and so forth, the more good you will do yourselves and others. But even if you cannot cultivate that much exertion, that much discernment, simply through entering the gate of Dharma and having faith in it, you have caused samsara for you to be definitely finite. It will definitely come to an end at some point. So therefore, you have acquired that which is so difficult to acquire, the freedoms and resources of a precious human existence. The second method for causing our minds to go to the Dharma is the contemplation of death and impermanence. About the contemplation of impermanence, the Buddha said that among all attitudes, the best attitude is the consideration of impermanence. The reason is that impermanence inspires us to give rise to faith, to engage in diligence, and therefore to achieve the final result of Dharma practice. It is said that it is initially impermanence that serves as the principal condition inspiring us to practice Dharma to begin with. While we are practicing, it is principally impermanence that spurs us on to diligence in practice. And finally, it is impermanence that guides us to the achievement of the final result. If someone enters the gate of Dharma and then finds that they lack the diligence they seek, through contemplation of impermanence, they can come to achieve that diligence. Many people have said to me, I very much like Dharma, and I want to practice, but somehow I just can't make myself do it. What should I do? In general, the suitable remedy for this situation is contemplation of the four thoughts, but in particular, it is contemplation of impermanence. Contemplation of impermanence will be very helpful in this situation. Someone who has not entered the gate of Dharma will do so if they properly contemplate impermanence. Someone who has entered the gate of Dharma but lacks diligence will gain diligence through that contemplation. Now, with regard to this contemplation, some people say, thinking about impermanence is depressing. It just makes you sad. There's no point to it. This is not actually the case, because although we may remain carefree if we do not reflect upon impermanence now, that state of ease or happiness is in fact very naive. If you meditate on impermanence, its result is to cause you to practice Dharma. And if you practice Dharma, you will achieve its result. The final result of Dharma practice is the state of consummate and perfect happiness. About this, Lord Milarepa sang in one of his songs, I initially fled to the mountains out of the fear of death, but now I have reached the fortress of no death, or the fortress beyond death. Through contemplation of impermanence, we eventually achieve a state of consummate and perfect happiness. But even if your diligence is not that great, whatever diligence you engage in, spurred by impermanence, will give you that much self-confidence. Therefore, the contemplation of impermanence is essential. The third means of causing your mind to go to the Dharma is contemplation of the results of actions. And this is fundamentally the understanding that every action leads to a certain type of result. Now, when we think about the results of actions, when we think about karma, people often have the idea that karma means fate, some kind of irrevocable fate over which we have no control. But in fact, this is exactly what karma is not. We all want to achieve a state of happiness. In order to achieve happiness, we must cultivate the cause of happiness, which is virtuous action. Since we have the ability to choose virtuous actions, we have the ability to achieve happiness. The achievement of that and the means of that achievement is in our hands. We all want to avoid suffering. In order to avoid suffering, we must abandon its cause, which is unvirtuous action. Since we have the ability to abandon unvirtuous actions, then the abandonment or avoidance of suffering is also within our grasp. At best, we can achieve freedom from all 6 states of samsara, but at least we can ensure that we're not reborn in the 3 lower states. In short, because of the results of actions, we have control over what happens to us. We can achieve a state of happiness and a state free from suffering by accumulating the causes of happiness and abandoning causes of suffering. This is up to us, and it depends on us and not on anyone else. Therefore, it's very important to understand this. Since we all want to be happy, we all want not to suffer, it's important to know that the practice of Dharma and so forth is the cause of happiness. Therefore, this contemplation of the results of actions is the third means of bringing the mind to the Dharma. I think it is important to be precise about what karma is and what it is not. Thursday, someone had an interview with me, and asked me a question about the understanding of karma in the Buddhist tradition. He said, "Is it not the case that in the Buddhist view, everything that happens to us is a result of karma? That every physical experience and physical tendency, everything we happen to say with our speech, and every thought that happens to arise in our minds, is it not the case that all of these things are karmic in nature?" He said that he was asking because he had seen in a text of instruction the statement that the thoughts that arise in our minds are not necessarily a result of karma, and he felt that this contradicted the Buddhist view in general, and in particular the view of the mind-only school, which says that all appearances arise from the mind, and that the mind is a karmic result or karmic product. He asked if this statement did not contradict this view. I mentioned this question because I think it's a very important one and worth discussing and answering. According to the Buddha's teachings, there are two principal factors in events. One is previous actions or previous karmas, and the other is present conditions. For example, the fact that someone is born human or born as an animal, and in either case exactly where they are born and when they are born, is a result of their previous actions or their previous karmas. For example, I mentioned a few minutes ago that you were born human in North America at a time when Dharma is available, and that this is all a result of your previous accumulation of good karma or of merit. This does not happen because of your plans. It's not the case that in order to be born here and now, at some point you thought, I will be born in North America at such and such time. That's not what caused it. What caused it is your accumulation of merit and so forth. However, the various things that we think from time to time, the various thoughts and changes of attitudes and so on that arise in our minds are not caused by our previous karma. Sometimes we find ourselves thinking, Dharma is excellent, I must practice it with diligence. Other times we find ourselves thinking, I simply cannot practice that much. These variations in our states of mind and our ways of thinking are not karmic. They are principally caused by present conditions or immediate conditions. It is because these things are subject to changes or fluctuations in immediate conditions that we can make the changes in our attitudes. It's because things such as our diligence and so forth are subject to conditions that we can consciously increase them, that we can ensure that when we have not achieved the result of practice, that we achieve it. And we do this by such things as listening to instruction, cultivating faith, engaging in diligence, and actually practicing. All of these things are results of present or immediate conditions. Now, with regard to the results of actions, according to the Buddha's teachings in the Abhidharma, there are 6 types of cause, 4 types of condition, and 5 types of result. From among these, one of the types of cause is called the cause of full maturation, and one of the types of result is called the fully matured or fully ripened result. According to the Buddha's statement in the Abhidharma, any cause of full maturation is necessarily either virtuous or unvirtuous. It is never and cannot ever be morally neutral. But the fully ripened or fully matured result of that cause is always itself neutral. While it is the result of either a virtuous or unvirtuous action, that result in and of itself does not have either virtuous or unvirtuous moral value. The fully matured result of an action is the flesh and blood and so forth, the aggregates of a specific existence. These substances themselves are neither virtuous nor unvirtuous, but are neutral. It is impossible for a cause of full maturation to be neutral, and it is impossible for the fully matured or fully ripened result not to be neutral. In this way, it's important to understand that not everything that happens to us is karma. and therefore we can change. We can change from a state without faith to one with faith, from a state lacking virtue to one with virtue, and so forth. The reason why I mention all of this is that some people feel that their states of mind are unchangeable results of the karma they've accumulated in previous lives. For example, some people feel that they cannot reduce or abandon their kleshas because they regard their kleshas as a result of their actions in previous lives. Or people think, I can't practice Dharma, and the reason why I can't practice is because of my karma from previous lives, and therefore there's nothing I can do about this. When people regard these situations as karmic results, which they are not, they become unwilling to apply those remedies or means which actually can and will change these things. These things are not karmic results. They are habits. And we possess a vast store of habits accumulated throughout beginningless time. And these habits have been accruing or growing over time. Therefore, if we apply the remedy to them, they can be gradually reduced. To apply the remedy continually to one of these situations will eventually weaken the habit and therefore change the state of mind. For example, a very angry person usually starts out by regarding their anger as good, as justified. They think of themselves as somehow heroic or brave because they get angry and are able to intimidate others. But if eventually that person comes to see what's wrong with their anger, if they start to realize that they are wrong to allow themselves to get angry in that way, then that is the start of a process that gradually will weaken and finally cause the abandonment of that anger. In short, if you apply the remedy to a state of mind, it can be changed because the remedy cultivates a habit that is the antithesis of the habit of which that state of mind itself consists. For example, if someone feels that they lack sufficient faith in and devotion for Dharma to practice it, and that they lack this because of their karma in previous lives, this is not true. They lack devotion for Dharma because no one starts in the beginning with devotion for Dharma. We have a beginningless habit that does not include the habit of devotion to Dharma. We have to start the habit of devotion by reflecting upon the need for Dharma, the benefits of Dharma. And that will cause faith in it and devotion for it to arise. And the more we reflect upon these things, the more this faith and devotion will increase. So these things are habitual and not karmic. They can be changed. Good habits can be cultivated. So therefore, it is incorrect to think that there's nothing you can do about your kleshas and that there's nothing you can do to increase your faith and devotion. The fourth means of causing the mind to go to the Dharma is contemplation of the defects of samsara. And in this context, what is generally presented is the various sufferings of the 6 states of sentient beings. From among these 6, what we are presently experiencing is human suffering, because we have been born as human beings. Now, human life, looked at from a distance, might seem comparatively pleasant. But as we all know, everybody has problems. Some people have physical problems and physical suffering. Some people have mental problems. Some people are depressed. Some people principally suffer from, as it's taught in texts, the suffering of not getting what you want. Some people principally suffer from encountering all sorts of things that they really don't want. In short, we are always experiencing some kind of suffering or another. And when these things come up, we generally ascribe that particular suffering to the particular circumstances that seem to cause it. But in fact, the fundamental or true cause of this suffering is not the particular circumstances at that time. These situations arise simply because they are characteristic of samsara. Therefore, As long as you are within samsara, such circumstances are going to continue to arise. Therefore, if you want to free yourself from all of this suffering, you must practice Dharma. As Jetsun Milarepa said, I fled to the mountains out of fear of death, but have achieved the fortress beyond death. When will you achieve happiness? You will achieve happiness when you are free from samsara. And in order to achieve freedom from samsara, you need to achieve the result of Dharma through practicing it. So, through understanding the defects of samsara, and through understanding that your human suffering is characteristic of samsara and its defects, this causes your mind to go to the Dharma. So these are the 4 instructions through which the mind goes to the Dharma. The freedom and resources of this precious human existence, death and impermanence, the results of actions, and the defects of samsara. As for how you meditate on these, of course, there are many texts of elaborate instruction on how to do so, but of principal importance is what Milarepa was referring to when he said, all that appears and exists are my texts. I have never studied ink written on paper. We can actually directly observe what is pointed out in these 4 contemplations or 4 instructions by looking around us. For example, if you look at the beings that are within your observable world, you can see how rare this precious human existence really is. How fortunate you are in comparison with most beings to enjoy the opportunities and resources that you do. With regard to impermanence, you can look and observe impermanence directly. Observe all of the changes that occur in your life and in the lives of others. You don't need to read about impermanence. You can actually experience it. And the same thing can be done with the observation of the results of actions and the observation of the defects of samsara. By looking around at all of the adversities that occur for yourself and others, and by resolving that finally only Dharma will eradicate these forever. Essentially, the instruction of the mind going to the Dharma is pointing out the nature of life as it really is, which, according to Lord Gampopa's teaching, is very important. Because through understanding the circumstances of our lives as they truly are, we will resolve that finally only Dharma will help us. This instruction is phrased as a supplication. Grant your blessing that my mind and the mind of all beings go to the Dharma. When in the instruction is phrased as referring to yourself and all beings, this reminds us that it is important for all of us, because it is only by your mind going to the Dharma that you will eventually become free from suffering. This is true for you, and it is true for all others as well. Therefore, Lord Gampopa phrased this both as his aspiration for the benefit or welfare of all beings and as an instruction. In that way, I have explained the first of the 4 dharmas of Gampopa, the mind going to the Dharma. And I thank you for listening to this enthusiastically. We'll conclude this morning's session with a brief practice of meditation, as meditation is, after all, our principal practice. And then at the end, when we dedicate the virtue, we will first of all recite the supplication for the longevity of His Holiness the Jamgon Karmapa. The reason why we do so is that all beings must achieve a state of happiness and freedom from suffering. This principally depends upon the continued presence without impairment of Dharma. That in turn depends upon the health and longevity of our root guru, His Holiness the Jamgon Karmapa. So therefore, we will pray for his health and longevity and then dedicate the merit.
Sa